Set adrift on memory bliss of you.
By the mid-1980s, Islington's Spandau Ballet had gone international, filling the stadiums of the world with screaming fans.
I think the whole of the first 5 years was like 5 guys on a trip to Benidorm.
So true, funny how it seems, always in time, but never in line for dreams. Head over heels, went toe to toe.
Before the stadiums, they were the house band of London's elite new romantic scene. But for Spandau, it was never about venues or musical styles. Right from the word go, as schoolmates in North London, these 5 working-class lads shared one burning ambition: success.
There are times when you sit on the end of your bed, you cry your eyes out because you want it so badly. And this has always amazed me. People always say, yeah, I want to be a pop star. Well, how badly do you want it? Well, you know, if it don't work out, I'll go back to work. That doesn't work. You've got to want it so badly that you will, on occasion, sit down and with disappointment and literally sob your heart out.
Wanting to make a pop band and be in a pop band, it was my entire life. I had no other private life, no such thing. The band, for me, was 24 hours a day. It's all I ever thought about. It's all I ever wanted to do. To me, the music was the last thing that was important. And I just wanted to be Bruce Lee. I wanted to be Marlon Brando and Elvis. I was in it for the ride.
We were strong. It was a real gang, a real team mentality. It was, we're Spandau Ballet, who the fuck are you?
We were having such a crack, you know, that was the main thing, really. We were very supportive of each other, very, very trusting, which probably became our downfall at the end of the day.
But that first day, seeing everyone in court, there we all were, discussing the pop band that we'd formed back at school. As grown men, you know, nearly 40 years old now. It was devastatingly sad, you know, when we'd glance at each other. This is what used to be Dame Alice Owen's grammar school. And in '76, John, Steve, myself, and another guy got a band together in the music room. And inevitably, the first gig we did really then was the school disco.
December the 8th in the, I think the dining room. And we played a set of probably half an hour. I think there was one original song in there, but the rest covered a gamut of Gary Puckett and Beatles and Chuck Berry.
And we played, I think it was to the 4th years, yeah. We thought we were dead cool, and of course all the girls, oh God, they look lovely. And of course 4th formers and us being in the lower 6th form, they thought we were. So it was great. So well, you're in a band, you're having a great time, and all the girls think you're the dogs. I thought, I'll buy that one any day. We started off as the Roots. That was the first name. Then we changed their name to the Cut. And then we were the Makers, which was, I thought we were getting really, you could almost taste, sort of, I think the Makers we're going to do it, we're going to make it.
Gary used to tell me that, you know, he'd formed this school group. They played quite well. I mean, they were quite good musicians, and Tony sang very well. But there was something visually wrong with it for me, because Richard Miller, although he was a competent bass player, didn't look like the others. He didn't look like a, you know, they were all very good looking, and he didn't I mean, he didn't look like the others. It didn't fit.
One day we were at a party, Steve Norman's 18th birthday party, and Steve Dagger was standing there and we were drinking together, drunk. Steve Dagger said to me, "Mark, you got to be a pop star." He said, you got to be on top of the pops one day.
He was very good looking then, and I thought, you know, why, it would be great if he was in the group, if he was on the stage, and he had sort of a little knot of girls would hang around him, and he was the roadie, so I thought we'd got to get him on the stage. So I suggested it to Gary. I said, why don't we get your brother in the group?
I said, my brother hardly plays. I mean, he's in some punk group, he's, you know, messing around. He doesn't play bass. I was quite shocked by that, really, getting my brother in the band. I thought, oh my God, I'm going to have to be responsible to him. He's a kid, he's only 16. But Steve convinced us. I knew at the time that if I didn't end up in that band, Gary was going to leave me behind. You know, Gary was going to do exactly what I wanted to do and be the successful one. And within 2 weeks I was in the band, and that was kind of like a dream come true for me.
With Martin on board, the band played London's ailing pub rock circuit, but they were going nowhere. Luckily for Spandau, an underground club scene was emerging where with enough front and frills, anyone could be a star.
It was just this kind of scene that got labelled New Romantic. People they wanted to kind of make some kind of cult image out of it, and they weren't sure what to call it, I suppose. So anyone that wore like a frilly shirt suddenly got labelled New Romantic.
The first time in a long time, young people are managing, I think very successfully, to combine enjoying themselves with being creative and intelligent.
Everyone who liked dressing up, we were all narcissists, absolutely no doubt, incredibly vain. We were all urban. We didn't want to go to the country and chill out, man. We weren't hippies. We wanted to do things right in the centre of London. And we wanted to just have a good time. You know, we'd all heard about the 60s and we knew how much that swung. Well, London didn't swing in 1977, 78. London was static. So we thought, well, let's give it a kickstart and it will swing again.
And swing it did, but only for those punters who actually made it through the door.
No, I don't really go by the way they dress so much as you can tell people's attitudes. You know, when they come to the door. I think you can anyway.
It was so fashionable and people so much wanted to come in that a lot of celebs would turn up. Grace Jones turned up with the whole entourage one time. And she was very rude. So we didn't let her in, and Sting was another one, and there's no way they were getting in.
One of the funniest things he did was turn Jagger away one night. And he went, what are you doing? You turned Mick Jagger away, you know. It would have been great to have met Mick Jagger. And, oh, no.
The music was exciting, it was modern, it was new. But the one thing that it didn't have at that very early stage was a group playing the music. There was no one actually making dance music for that audience.
Steve never missed anything. He was out every night. He knew exactly what was going on everywhere, and then he saw, you know, he had this band and he saw it was an opportunity just to plug into that scene.
Steve said to me, look, Gary and Martin have got this band, what should we call them? And I said, well, call them Spandau Ballet. It'll really wind people up. And it's kind of somehow indicative of decadence and dressed up, and ballet is kind of classical, and it's completely contrary to the way that everyone wants to be when they're all called the Four Skins or something, and just go that route.
And sitting here in the Holloway Road, you know, Spandau sounded very exotic. So we said, yeah, that's cool.
We'd play parties more than anything, wouldn't play the normal average rock pub gig. And we'd use the same door policy. You're okay. Sorry. You're okay, your friend's not. You know, poor things. But, you know, that was kind of the whole buzz of it. We created our own buzz, and it was ours, and no one was going to take it away from us. It was really special.
20th century. 20th century.
The Scala Cinema London, one Tuesday night in May. and these exotic people have gathered to enjoy a performance by the band Spandau Ballet, a group who've only performed in public 5 times.
I mean, to set the scene, I mean, we're in Tottenham Street now, so you've got to imagine, we were living the part, right? So, you know, we were turning up, me and John, with all the gear with our cars and stuff, dressed in the full Monty. I mean, we lived the part, it wasn't just an act. And, you know, you imagine all these weirdly dressed people humping bits of equipment down at the Scala Cinema.
Listen to the portraits of the dance of perfection, the Spandau Ballet.
You got to remember that for us, playing the Scala Cinema with the 20th Century Box crew filming us was, you know, it was like, this was our big day. This was, you know, the band were getting married type thing. So everything had to be well planned out, the wedding cake and everything else. And we want to make sure that everyone knew their role for the day, so that we were going to make the best impression for the TV people, and that would lead, hopefully, to record company interest. And that's what we were looking for all the time.
I got to my parents' flat, and my mother said, she said, there's been a lot of phone calls after that programme went out. I said, really? She said, who from? She said, well, there's CBS, A&M, Chrysalis, and it was on my mother's telephone message pad, there was every record company in London.
You've spent nights streaming about being a pop star, being, you know, number one, being a pop star, number two, getting signed up to a record deal, you know, and having the ability to go and go, look, Mum, I've got my first album, my first single. It's like, that's the total business.
I mean, they were the record company that came to us with the most money, and I think that's always attractive when you're 17. I think it could, if another EMI had come to us with more money, we would have gone to them. They were the first time I encountered a bunch of working class lads for whom aspiration was not a bad word. You know, in their book, that they could own the means of production, to use that expression, and they wanted to own the means of production, and in doing so they wanted to enhance their own lives and make them, you know, and aspire to something else. And they had a business model, again, which is unusual, where they divided the profits of the company between them.
Another unusual aspect of their business setup was songwriter Gary Kemp's generous gift of a percentage of his writing royalties to the rest of the band.
Through most of our career, most other bands would look at us and say, oh, you know, I wish we had that good a relationship. I wish we had such a fair split. I wish, you know, it would go that easily. You know, in fact, we're quite smug about it.
With guitars slung over their kilts, Spandau's first single, To Cut a Long Story Short, scored them a top 5 hit.
We were very arrogant. I think by the time we got there was no humility. We all believed it was our destiny.
Steve Norman wore the kilt, by the way. Everyone says, I saw you wear. I said, no, I wore a pair of trousers with a little spur on, thinking a pair of binoculars. But it was Steve Norman was brave enough to wear the kilt.
Oh, Tony needed encouraging. Yeah, to get Tony to wear different stuff, he needed a lot of encouraging. But he did it in the end, you know. But he was always about a year behind. You know, he'd always get into it about a year later. And we say, no, but Tony, it's moved on. You know, it's kind of job for look now. He said, oh no, I've just got into the tartan thing. Within the band, it was kind of my job to say, right guys, let's wear this, let's go in this direction, because I think I was spending more time in the clubs than the others maybe, and I was a little bit more in touch with what was happening, and I would come to the band and say, right, this is the direction we should go in.
Spandau Ballet were now the darlings of the new romantic scene. With the video for chant number 1, they gave the rest of Britain a glimpse of their exclusive world.
We had to do the video at the Beat Route, because the Beat Route was... Now, everyone wanted to be in London and go to this club. This was the centre of what was ever happening in social youth life in 1981. This was the place to be. And there was a queue a mile long to get in the place.
We're at what used to be
The Beetroot Club, back probably about, what, turn of the 1980s, I suppose. This is where we used to hang out on a Friday night and drink lots of vodka. Should we go and have a lager?
Yeah, let's go.
So, we're going to have to pay to get in then?
I don't think we should.
I remember we thought it'd be a cheap video because we got all our mates in to come down for nothing, and it cost us about 4 million quid in beer to keep them here all
Isn't
afternoon.
this the area where Tony said, no, he wiped his head, didn't he? He put his hand across there like that. It was all set up and it took an extra 4 days to get the shot actually right.
Bar's in the same place though. Is it cheap vodka night tonight?
Captured a moment in British social history. It captured exactly the background we were coming from at a club that was really in the news at the time.
When did we film the video? During the afternoon, wasn't it?
During the afternoon, yeah.
And we managed to persuade all our mates to get up early before the crack of noon to come down here to send out for more beer at some stage.
There was a sense of being at the forefront of something new and exciting.
And then there was the TVs behind the bar with the alley fight, wasn't there?
Cassius Clay, yeah.
And then it had this rap at the end, which I did, which was you go down, down past the talk of the town, you go down Beach Street, then it's underground. It's Soho life for this mobile knife, it's the place to shoot. Friday Night Beetroot.
After chart #1 success, Spandau's career stalled. In the fickle world of 80s fashion, the new romantic scene was now passé. It was time for Spandau to move on.
Our aim was to become as big as the Rolling Stones. It was never to be like this kind of subversive kind of underground band that was going to stay locked in Covent Garden. We wanted to be Rolling Stones. We wanted to be the biggest band in the world.
We couldn't have obtained that by continuing playing exactly the same sort of music that we did on those first 3 singles. And so there really was only one way to go then, and for me that was to let all of that go, to not worry about trying to be hip, trying to be part of the scene, but to be brutally commercial, really.
After escaping their new romantic roots, Spandau embraced the pop star lifestyle wholeheartedly. Their first move was to the Bahamas, where they began recording their 3rd album.
Mr. Tony Hadley, another word, quick word.
She put so much into her life. She took so much out of his.
For me, it was a holiday. For the other guys, it was a way to escape and to record this laid-back album. But all I could think about was the beaches, to be honest.
Recording the Bahamas, laid back, a bit cool, a bit reggae-ish, you know. We'd get up and have our breakfast and sit by the pool for a couple of hours and go and record a few things.
The Bahamas trip produced the required new musical direction. Spandau's songwriter Gary Kemp came up with a mellow soul light sound that hit the right note for the Playboy aspirations of the mid-80s. The album True spawned 4 worldwide hit singles, most notably the title track.
We were slightly nervous about it. It was a big step, you know, from these flamboyant characters. We were now releasing a ballad, and we were wearing suits. Another image change. And whilst we knew it was a good song, we knew it was a little bit of a risk.
True was an extraordinary moment recording it. You know when a song is working, there's something about it. I don't know what it is that is inexplicable. But there's something about the timing of that track and the chord structure and the way Tony was singing it and whatever it was working. And we were all totally buzzed in the studio when we were making that song, and we were all convinced it was going to be a huge hit. it would be our single.
I know this much is true.
Obviously, it's a bloody good tune, so it really took off. I mean, yeah, number 10 and then number 1 in England straight away.
And I remember, like, John, Steve and Gary Martin just bursting at my room. 7 o'clock in the morning, I was like, we're number 1, we're number 1. Champagne everywhere.
We were pop stars. Simple as that.
To write one of those in your life, you're fairly happy. It's had like nearly 2 million airplays in America.
True was the one that really saw us in America, and it stayed at number 4 for a month, which, you know, in our eyes, it was like we've done it, we've broken America.
It's still number 1, Spandau Ballet and True.
After 4 weeks, and it looks as though it'll be number 1 for the rest of the century.
But now I've come back.
They became sort of national figures. We started a fan club, which we'd never had before. You know, a cult group doesn't have a fan club.
We want Spandau! We want Spandau! We want
We were near a sort of more of a teen pop band, really, and girls chasing us on the street, screaming. I've got to tell you, it's a great laugh.
I just think we thought, let's go all the way, let's be big, let's go for it.
By now, the band were in the pop big league, competing with bands like Duran Duran for pole position.
They were our rivals. I mean, people have said in later years that we were, you know, us and Wham were, or us and Culture Club. Bollocks. It was us and Spandau.
We were really in competition with Duran Duran.
One of us had to be the best, and that we wanted it to be us. Yeah, we took it very seriously. It's the only time, and I have to say, it's the only time in my career and in the band's career that we've ever taken any rivalry at all seriously.
You know, we wanted to be top of the pile. That was simple as that. And, you know, a lot of bands get to the stage and sort of bottle out. We wanted to play Shea Stadium. We wanted to be the best band in the world.
Are you ready?
By sort of parade tour, there were, yeah, backdrops and, you know, things like Very Lights. We had a few of those, and yeah, fantastic double bass drums, gongs, all sorts of rock and roll heaven.
That's what you want, I mean, you know. And the arena thing, we took to it like ducks to water, I have to say. You know, I love strutting around on the big stage, big show off at home.
That was kind of like when we were, rock gods. That was our rock god phase.
Probably the biggest tour, and the Barricades tour was probably the best production, when I had a 8-foot drum, my own bar underneath, and we had a dartboard and stuff, so, you know, the bits through the Barricades, like, you know, bits at the front where there's some guitar and vocals and stuff. End of the number before that, I used to go downstairs, see Obson, my drum tech, have a, you know, little game of darts, talk about football, a couple of JDs and Cokes, and, you know, resume my position for the bit where the drums come in and the song gets really interesting.
Post-True, everybody had more money and had more resources available to the group, so everything did become more luxurious.
There's nothing like it in America, sitting in the back of a limo with a vodka and tonic or a bottle of Jack Daniels or whatever. It really was like like stepping into the telly or something for us. You know, we couldn't believe it. It was like your dream. You're just in a dream.
Okay, well, we're just off to Milan now.
It was kind of flaunting wealth in a way. All that kind of, that dynasty thing was very much part of that period of, like, let's, look, you can be rich too, we can all be rich.
The 80s was about overspending, and so we kind of overspent.
We did do a bit of loads of money, but we never earned that much money. I mean, you know, I probably earned about 40k a year on average, you know, which is good money, but not earth-shattering. You're not going to buy your mum a house on that, are you?
It was sort of Joan Collins kind of fame. They were famous for being a pop group, and you saw them doing the things that pop groups do, which was playing and arsing about and being adored by their fans. You know, that was really how it manifested itself. You know, and was pretty much a constant, whichever part of the world you happened to be in with them.
There was always parties, and there was the, you know, what we call the dodgy boiler passes or the dragon passes. So you'd send the minders out to recruit people for the party, you know.
I was working by now for this #1 magazine. I basically just had to do a diary of the, you know, the 2 weeks. Each day we'd get a little bit of paper would come under the door with the itinerary, and it would say 11 o'clock. After the show, there will be a bit of a party. And then, basically, I think this was the idea of the promoters, Paul Dainty, but he would basically phone all the model agencies in the area, and basically be a large black bin liner in one corner filled with champagne and 2 bottles of beer, and then just all the models in the other corner, and then the band somewhere in between with sort of, I don't know, a couple of other people. It was very pleasant.
Spandau were a boozing band, really. Our rider over the years, you know, got to astronomical proportions, really.
We were told that the budget for our tour was highly expensive, so we thought, well, where can we cut back a little bit? And then someone had this great idea about cutting back on the rider.
You know, we'll cross off the things that people don't want. So straight away, you know, it was 12 bottles of champagne. To do a gig, you've got to have a bottle of champagne, haven't you? So that stayed on. Case of lager, so many cases of lager.
Cheers, England!
Yeah, you've got to have beer, Steve. Bottle of vodka, bottle of Jack Daniels, bottle of every spirit. You've got to have that. Case of, you know, what about gin? I don't know about gin.
Well, yeah, got to have that, yeah.
Eventually we get down to a carton of concentrated orange juice, and somebody says, well, who drinks that? I don't. No, I don't. I don't. Steve, how long's this been on the rider? It's a fucking waste. It's a bottle of concentrated. How long's it been on there? I said, you don't have it, do you? It came off, right?
That's about all we saved until we got down to the cheese board. And we all said, oh, look, you know, it comes in the dressing room every night and no one really touches it. It starts to stink after we've been there for a while. It's just going to get crossed off, at which point Martin Kemp put his hand up and said, you know, I like a bit of cheese now and then.
In the mid-80s, the record industry had developed a spend, spend, spend policy, which produced a radical new marketing tool, the pop video.
Because of the way that videos had suddenly become so important for a group, for marketing a group, this developed this bizarre sort of video war. It was rather like the nuclear arms race, and which sort of Spandau and Duran.
As soon as the video thing started happening, I think we really kind of took the initiative and became kind of more the active part of the rivalry.
Duran were filming Rio and going to Thailand, and we were being left behind in Battersea.
I think the first place we went was the Lake District, which was hardly as exciting as Sri Lanka. But eventually, we ended up in Hong Kong and in the southern states of America, shooting in the swamps, and we did our extravagant tourist videos.
The
cost of our videos went up and up and up and up until it was like, where do you want to go on holiday then? Oh, New Orleans is all right. Hong Kong? Yeah, that'll do. So the costs were horrendous.
I suppose we entered a world then that was really out of touch with whatever had inspired us in the first place. And it's the danger of any band, is that your inspiration becomes purely yourself. So it is a bit dangerous for most bands, and you do become a bit of a, you can, you know, end up becoming a bit of a parody of yourself.
My big deal at that point was I wanted to be an actor, and I think those videos were kind of frustrating for me because I wanted to do more. I could feel that I wanted to be in front of the camera doing more, and Tony would always get the lead part, and I was always pushing into the background, which was always frustrating for me. Gary and I were both being offered several different parts before the Cratering movie, but the Cratering was the thing that everyone was waiting to see. We knew that, you know, we were the luckiest two guys in England at that time to get those roles. There was a whole queue of actors waiting to jump over us. But the Cratering was the obvious thing, was that was going to be the biggest springboard. And it was great for us, but I think it was frustrating for the other guys.
I don't have a problem with people going off and making films, that's fine. From my own personal point of view, and I've discussed this with Martin as well, and at the time, because there was a bit of fallout about it, is that I would have liked to have been asked.
I guess they were scared, really, that it may be the sort of end of the group. You know, if the film did well, maybe we'd want to carry on acting. Ironically, it was because of their attitude towards us, I think, that I really wanted to finish the group.
While Gary and Martin were busy with The Craze, Spandau were also recording what would be their last album, Heart Like a Sky.
Once there were times, love, when we could touch the air between. And out across this room, we'd fill the space with all our skin.
I felt personally in my heart we'd reached a sell-by date. I mean, it was 1988 and we'd been making records since 1980. And it was with some reluctance, really, that I went back in the studio to make another album.
No matter how many miles,
other things began to happen. You know, I felt that I wanted a bigger credit on the production side of things, and asked for that. And I think when you see that the boat is starting to rock, you think, well, just keep rocking it, you know, and see what happens.
He decided in one swift stroke, really, to change the credits, and also, which really doesn't have anything to do with the credits, but it came at the same time, to stop paying publishing payments, which we'd received throughout the career of Spandau Ballet.
You know, up until then it had been very all for one for all. And now this was, you know, turning into a bit of Animal Farm. You know, all band members are equal, but some are more equal than others. And Tony was having a tough time. Gary was trying to tell him how to sing the songs, and it turned into a bit of a nightmare.
He grew into being a control freak at that point, and it just seemed to me that that was the point where he really overstepped the mark, and these decisions he were making were purely selfish ones.
I think, you know, I'd started to lose faith in the group, you know. I didn't want to be in that gang anymore.
We should have got together and said, OK, right, Spandau Ballet, we won't do it for a couple of years. We'll go off, do what you want. You know, call me in 2 years and we'll see what the deal is. What happened was it just sort of petered out. I mean, Spandau's never split. There was never anything in the press. It just sort of deflated over a couple of years.
These are my salad days, slowly being eaten away. Just another play for today.
Immediately after a band finishes,
There's a desperation to prove your individuality and your strength as an individual. That you're equally as important or more important, and there's a kind of revenge that sort of creeps in.
Gold, always believe in your soul. You've got the power to know you're indestructible. Always believe in you are gold. Like that you're bound to return. There's something I could have learned. You're indestructible. Always believe in.
I kind of sort of want to go like that. I think, if I'm honest with you, you know, Spandau Ballet. I know that sounds quite sad because there's a lot of sort of still fans there and everything, but it's just bad memories at the moment.
The nightmare continued for Steve Norman, Tony Hadley and John Keeble. In settlement of court costs, they had to pay Gary Kemp a 6-figure sum and sign over to him all their financial interests in the band, including any use of the name Spandau Ballet. Even the saxophone currently used by Steve Norman and the drum kit used by John Keeble are now owned by Gary. The three boys are currently touring the world as Hadley, Norman and Keeble, ex-Spandau Ballet.
Spandau Ballet are a brand name, and it would be my passport back on stage. Part of me never wants to do it again. It's the end of an era. Part of me is fascinated by what it would be like, because we spent such an extraordinary time together. Whether or not we can forget all our differences now, I don't know whether we're capable of doing that. But no one else can play those songs. No one else can get up on stage and play True, or, you know, you can get different guitarists in, or you can get a different singer in if you like. But really, people only really want to see the 5 people who originally played it getting up and playing it. And we can do that.
I've been to Hollywood, I've seen the Deadwood, I'm on the plane again, I guess you knew I would. All the fault lines here, split the city into two, part of you today.
Reliving the turbulent times of Dexy's Midnight Runners, Young Guns returns to BBC Two at the same time next week. And Jules Holland's tuning into Travis, Sholama and Paul McCartney, to name a few, this Friday at 1:35.